Hey guys, it's Chris at Highline Guitars. You're watching another one of my YouTube guitar building videos. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I hope that by the end of this video, I'll have earned the honor and privilege of your subscription. And of course, to everybody who's watching, if you enjoy this video, please consider clicking that thumbs up button down below. And if you'd like to take your support to the next level, you can visit my eGuitar Plans website or my Highline Guitars merch store. And any purchase you make there is going to help support this channel so that I can keep making videos about building guitars. And if you'd like to keep your support real simple, you could click the thanks button and leave a tip in the amount that you think is fair. What I'm going to talk about in today's video is I'm going to try to answer a question that was posed by a viewer recently who wanted to know why should they spend $3,000 to $4,000 for a guitar when they can spend $100 for an inexpensive guitar off Amazon or AliExpress or eBay, any one of those online sources. And the answer, unfortunately, is a little bit complicated because it's situational. Now, as a guitar builder, my instinct would be to tell you to spend $3,000 to $4,000 because you're going to get a better quality guitar and you're going to be a lot happier. However, if you've watched enough guitar reviews on YouTube, you know that that isn't always the case. You can spend thousands of dollars for a really nice high-end guitar and find that when you get the guitar, it's not quite what you were expecting in terms of its setup. And the opposite is true with cheap guitars. You could spend $100 for a guitar and end up with a guitar that has perfect setup, that plays just fine without any problems whatsoever. We've seen plenty of reviews online where guitar players are reviewing budget-friendly cheap guitars, and they're awesome. So why would somebody want to part with thousands of dollars when they could just spend $100 and get a pretty decent guitar? Like I said, it's situational. In some cases, in many cases, in fact, that cheap guitar is absolutely what you paid for. They are not always some miraculous, inexpensive budget find, a diamond in the rough, if you will. In fact, in many cases, the guitars are almost unplayable out of the box. So in order to make the guitar playable, a considerable amount of work has to be done. Frets have to be leveled, they need to be crowned, dressed, polished, the bridge needs to be adjusted, the action over the frets needs to be adjusted. In many cases, you have to replace the nut with a better quality nut that's been cut properly in order to maximize sustain and tone. So a lot of times a great deal of work has to be done on those cheap guitars in order just to make them playable. As a result, you have to consider the cost of setup as part of the price of the guitar. So if you spend $100 for the guitar and it needs $350 worth of work, that $100 guitar has suddenly become a $450 guitar. But here's the thing, in many cases, even if you spend the $450 to buy the guitar and to have it set up properly, you still end up with a great guitar. A guitar that you can play and learn on and expand your abilities, record, do whatever. You probably could even tour with one for that matter. Now, with a really expensive guitar, like a $3,000 to $4,000 guitar, there's the assumption that it's going to be perfect right out of the box. Now, that isn't always the case. It's important to remember that a guitar is being manufactured in one location, shipped to a warehouse, and then shipped to you. Even if you're buying it from a bricks and mortar, it still had to be shipped from a factory to a distribution center and then to the store, and then you go and pick it up and drive it back to where you live. All that handling, all that passage through different environments can throw off the setup significantly to where you really need to spend some time adjusting your string heights and checking the neck to make sure it's straight, or if you prefer a little bit of relief, that amount of relief is correct, which in many cases requires a truss rod adjustment. So you have to consider that all this work is going to need to be done. And that's true with a $3,000 to $4,000 guitar. it's rare that one is going to be perfect right out of the box. Now, I know some of you will chime in the comment section below and say, yeah, I spent $4,000 on a Gibson SG or Gibson Les Paul, and it was perfect right out of the box, and it's been perfect ever since. Great. But for many people, it's not, and they need to have work done in order to make them perfect. Now, the difference between a cheap $100 guitar and a $4,000 guitar, in theory, is that the amount of work that needs to be done is significantly less with the more expensive guitar. With the cheaper guitars, there's always the risk that some of the work that needs to be done can't be done. For example, you may find that the string action over the frets is way too high, and you want to lower it down to what you're accustomed to or what you would prefer, or what you've read you should be playing it at. So what you would want to do is lower the bridge or lower the saddles in order to achieve the action that you're hoping for. Unfortunately, in many cases, with those cheap guitars, you can't lower the bridge any further than it's already been lowered. So you're stuck with that action. And for many people, that's a deal breaker. They can't play the guitar with that kind of high action, and they hate it, and they don't like it, and they're not going to bond with a guitar that they can't get the action set up correctly. So before you even purchase that $100 guitar, you want to make sure that the action can be adjusted. And really the only way to know that for sure, besides trying to ask the manufacturer, which is almost impossible, is to read other reviews of that guitar and see what experiences other people have had. Were they able to adjust the action? If not, then that's a red flag, and I would consider foregoing the purchase of that guitar and looking elsewhere for another budget guitar, which might have a greater potential for the type of adjustments that you need to make. And then always remember that when you're having to make those adjustments, you're going to have to hire a luthier to do it, and you're going to need to find out what their charges are and then factor that into the cost. It is possible that you can do some of the work yourself, and I see a lot of folks visiting my channel looking for the information they need in order to do their own setup work. That's always, that's a possibility, but you have to, once again, you're going to have to factor in the cost of the tools, and you're going to have to consider whether or not you have the experience and the skills to actually do some of that work, because it's not automatic. Just because you go out and spend, $150 for a really good fret leveling beam or files that you need to do the work doesn't mean that you're automatically going to be able to do the work correctly. It takes skill and experience to do it properly. So in most cases, you're probably going to have to hire another luthier, somebody who is in your community who knows how to do the work, will charge a fair price. And when they hand the guitar back to you, it's going to be perfect. It's going to play exactly the way you wanted it to, which of course means you're going to have to tell the luthier exactly how you want this guitar set up. You're going to have to know what kind of string height you want, string spacing, all that kind of stuff. And how high the pickup should be from the strings. The list goes on. So you need to know all that stuff so that you can tell the luthier what work needs to be done. Then they can give you a price back, and then you can factor that into the cost of the guitar. And that way you can determine whether or not it's going to fit your budget. And sometimes you can do this actually before you even purchase the guitar. If you've got a guitar in mind that you'd like to buy, you can contact a luthier and tell him that you're going to purchase this guitar and you'd like to bring it to him to do some setup work. What would they charge to do that? And hopefully they can give you a price, which you can then factor in and then decide whether or not that's going to fit into your budget. Now, when it comes to purchasing the much more expensive guitars, and this is really aimed for those of you out there who have either deep pockets or have been playing guitars for years and years and years and have saved the money and are ready to make that expensive purchase. Like I said, you have to be prepared for some setup work to be done in order for the guitar to be playable for your requirements. And that's especially true with string action, neck relief, all that kind of stuff. But the differences between a $100 guitar and a $4,000 guitar is usually the work that needs to be done on the $4,000 guitar is minimal and it's easy to do, or at least it should be. Again, you're going to have to do research to find out what is the reputation of the company or the builder who's making that expensive guitar. Are they known for making guitars that are perfectly set up or require very little work to be done in the first place? Research is always extremely important, whether you're spending money on a cheap guitar or a really expensive guitar. You know, in the end, you want an instrument that you can pick up and play perfectly. And you're going to have to probably invest a little bit of money no matter what price point you're aiming for, because all guitars need some form of setup work. That's just how guitars are. You know, unless you're buying a carbon fiber guitar that isn't going to move or change or anything at all. And even then, you're probably still going to need to make some kind of adjustments to get string action the way you want it. So you've got to factor those costs into the guitar no matter what you're purchasing. But it's probably going to require significantly more work the cheaper the guitar. So, you know, you can probably have to budget for fret leveling, especially fret dressing on the edges of the frets, crowning, polishing, setting the bridge height, the saddle height, and there's a good chance you're going to have to swap out that nut, that plastic cheapo nut that came with the guitar, with a proper bone nut that has the slots cut correctly in order to maximize tone and sustain of the guitar. So I hope you found this video to be useful and informative, and I hope it will give you some food for thought. I would really like to hear from those of you out there watching who've had experiences buying cheap guitars and buying expensive guitars, and the type of work that you had to do in order to make the guitar playable. Was it expensive? Was it difficult? Was the money spent worth it, especially if you were purchasing a really cheap guitar and trying to make it a better guitar? Or were you really disappointed when you spent $4,000 for a really nice high-end guitar only to find that it needed a significant amount of work to be playable? Share it down in the comments section below. That's how all of us watching can learn, is to read the experiences that other people have had. So in the meantime, though, I hope you've enjoyed the video. So give it a thumbs up. Visit eGuitarAppliance.com, the Highline Guitars merch store. Click the thanks button, leave a tip in the amount you think is fair, and I hope you'll be back for future guitar building videos.